And we're back. Episode 2, as Professor Michael Welch.com introduces the course, Torture and Human Rights. We left off last time with a brief overview of some of the courses I teach at Rutgers University. And I mentioned this course, War on Terror, which, along with the course of Torture and Interrogation, provided the building blocks to put together this more elaborate course on torture and human rights. But let us now transition into the syllabus. Give you an idea of what we're getting ourselves into. So this is on my website, ProfessorMichaelWelch.com, course syllabi. Let me mention at the onset that this particular version of the syllabus will not be used for this particular course. This is the syllabus that I developed for teaching in class, on campus, etc., etc. And what I've done is I've modified this particular syllabus to retrofit it, if you will, to the online course. And that syllabus has been constructed for Canvas, which is going to be the last episode in this series. We're going to go to the Canvas page. We're going to look specifically at this syllabus, Torture and Human Rights, and how I have reconfigured it for your educational purposes. But the thrust of this syllabus is pretty much indicative of what we're going to do this semester. The purpose of the course in a post-9/11 world. And I mention that because we live in a world where there was a world before 9/11, especially in the US, and a post-9/11 reality. And what happened before and after is prominently displayed in these tools of the War on Terror. Let me continue. Torture has been revitalized as and I mention here in parentheses, a dubious, very questionable. And that's going to be one of the underlying themes of this course, is to examine how something such as interrogation, enhanced interrogation to be more specific in terms of the terminology of the Bush administration, that has been handed to other presidential administrations in the global war on terror. The course analyzes the moral, ethical, and legal implications to policies and practices involving extraordinary renditions. We'll explain that later. Detainee maltreatment, I think that speaks for itself. Enhanced interrogation, we're going to talk in great detail of those techniques. Special attention is directed to the phenomenon known as modern torture. And this is where I want to spend a lot of time this semester examining this notion of science. Notice that I put science in quotation marks to kind of highlight this particular concept as something that we should critically examine and provide very close attention to how so-called science, pseudoscience, became a paradigm for psychologists who were then instructing government operatives to interrogate detainees. And in particular, we're going to spend a great deal of time talking about these no-touch torture tactics. And again, this is much more psychological, where they don't leave scars, they leave no marks, they leave no evidence. Therefore, it makes these crimes of torture, of maltreatment, more difficult to prosecute because there is the absence of tangible evidence. Wounds, injuries, scars, etc., etc. More about that later. Now, one of the advantages of this course is that there is no book assignments. So you're going to be benefiting from my generosity by providing PDFs of each of these articles. And what I've done is I have uploaded those to the Canvas page. And those PDFs are going to be the parallel track of this course. We're going to look at my photographs, my field work in various cities and prisons and memorial sites. And you will then read these articles alongside those slideshows. One exception is this article here, which you're going to download yourself. More about that later when we talk about the syllabus on the Canvas page. Suggested readings. As you notice, I have paid close attention to these developments. Physicians for Human Rights, Doing Harm, Professionals, Health Professionals, Central Role in CIA Torture Program, Physicians for Human Rights. You might want to look at the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence that studied the CIA's detention and interrogation program. It was unclassified in 2014. The Institute on Medicine as a Profession, Ethics Abandoned, Medical Professionalism, Detainee Abuse, and the War on Terror. I mentioned in the previous episode that my formal background in psychology has become a touchstone for me as a scholar to reflect on my interest and my commitment to psychology as a model, as a toolbox, if you will, to help people, to assist them who are dealing with psychological and emotional distress, and to find, to discover, to learn that there are psychologists that have re-engineered those techniques, have created enormous controversy. And I point that out here because I'm not the only one who has spent time evaluating, if you will, reflecting on these developments. So that is this portion of the syllabus. When we get to the final episode, we're going to look in greater detail as to how I have revised and modified this syllabus for this course, Torture and Human Rights. Let us go to one other item. Now, many people ask me about how my work, my scholarly contributions are distributed and how people can learn about my work on torture and human rights and political imprisonment and state crime, etc., etc. Where can they go for very small snapshots of my work? And I'm directing attention to Google Scholar. It's an amazing product of the internet, very easy to navigate. And so with a couple of clicks, see recommendations. I want to see all these. This is a recommended articles that have, it's an algorithm that has been developed for me. So when I log on, this is what I see, because all of these articles or writings have implications to my work. So for example, social deprivation and solitary confinement, and so on and so forth, torture and American exceptionalism, which cites one of my articles, trampling human rights and the war on terror. I do not list that for this course, but it is relevant if you want to track it down. What is more significant to this course by way of Google Scholar is Michael Welch, Rutgers University. You just, you can plug that into your search engine, and this is me at Rutgers University. I've verified this account, its profile. So you click one more time. You might notice that I've got my website photograph right there as an identifier. So that's an easy way to track who I am. When you see this little logo, that's kind of my brand, if you will. This is kind of how I convey, express my identity on the internet, okay? No fancy photographs of me trying to smile, and that's for other people. I like these images. ProfessorMichaelWelch.com. So, when you go to, for example, this profile, once again, this is relevant to this course. I'm not requiring this book, but this is a very good snapshot of Scapegoats of September 11th. Okay, so if you want to read more about how 9/11 is a dissecting event. As I mentioned a few moments ago, there is a period of American history before 9/11 and then the post 9/11 reality we live in with respect to the war on terror and these various techniques of torture and interrogation. So that's Scapegoats of September 11th. It was translated into Korean, if you want to read that version. It's one of the reasons I lectured in Seoul, South Korea. It was a kind of a book tour of sorts. And we also have the companion book, Crimes of Power. Again, I'm not requiring this book. The articles that you will be reading have stemmed from this book of Crimes of Power, States of Impunity, the U.S. Response to Terror. Impunity is a very important concept because when we study state crime, when we see government operatives engaging in torture and various other outrages upon personal dignity, oftentimes they do so with impunity. In some cases, there have been attempts to actually formally immunize these government operatives, not just in the United States, but in the southern cone of Latin America, where I did in-depth field work in 2017. Let's pause, get another cup of coffee, come back, and continue.